Yes, champions, welcome to Lights Out Performance Podcast, the podcast for you white collar boxers. And here we'll cover everything that is going to help optimize and improve your performance. And I am here with the awesome nutritionist Finn. Finn, say hello. And yeah, how did you get into nutrition and working in the kind of combat sports scene?
How you doing, Kieran? Yeah, first of all, just want to say thank you very much for having me on. Yeah, so to be honest with you, it all started from when I was in uni and I was studying for my degree in sports nutrition and, doing various assignments with athletes and doing various case studies with combat sports athletes. So I kind of got the passion for it from there, and then learning about different ways to cut weight, different methods of managing your weight, fueling your performance, and kind of just, developed the passion for it over the years. And then eventually decided one day, from actually one of my mates at the time, just randomly turned around to me and said, you know what you should do? You've got all this knowledge about nutrition, you know a lot about diet. You should start posting videos on Instagram. And at first, it terrified me, the thought of getting on camera. But after a bit, I just thought, you know what? Might as well get stuck into it. So I started off actually talking about nutrition in general. There wasn't really any specific niche or any sort of targeted audience. But after a while, I started realizing that I was just giving information to like general population. So then I started realizing that I need to dial down with a niche, and then realized that I've always loved boxing, MMA, combat sports, and there's obviously a lot of issues in weight cutting which I'd like to solve, and I know I've got the potential to solve it and make things easy for a lot of fighters. So I just kind of got into that, working with the fighters and kind of like researching about different struggles fighters have when it comes to making weight. And then I just started directing all of my content towards that, giving, free value tips, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube shorts, pretty much every social media platform you can think of, really. And then just started working with fighters and basically just working on building my reputation, just spreading my message as much as I can, really, and just developing it. And that's it, really, in a nutshell. Yeah.
Nice. So tell me about the first ever fighter that you worked with then. Like, how did it come around, or how did it come about, sorry? And yeah, was that a weight cut as well, or was that more like performance driven nutrition? So even though I guess they do go hand in hand, I totally understand that. But yeah, the kind of end goal, was it predominantly weight cut, or was it a bit more kind of like performance focused?
Yes, so I mean, I've had that many fighters. It's hard to remember who was actually my first original one, but to be honest, let me try and think. So the first fighter that I was working with was a guy called Darren McManus, and we're still working together to this day. And we've actually done a podcast together earlier on. But yeah, so he was the first, I'd say, active fighter that I started working with around, I think it was around May time, and I'd just got back from Australia. And he basically messages me and he says, "Hiya mate, you okay?" I said, "I've seen your videos. I like a lot of your information. I know you're a nutritionist and you're good at working with fighters." He says, "Look, I need to lose 9 kilograms in 2 weeks." And as soon as I heard that message and I seen that, I thought, oh my God, this guy actually wants me to help him do it, and I'm actually going to be working with him. And to be honest, I was quite nervous about doing it at the time, even though I was qualified and I knew what I was doing. It was the first time I
That message from him though, I need to lose 9 kilos in 2 weeks. Sorry, that is one of those like, tell me you're a boxer without telling me you're a boxer, and you just show someone that message, and they're like, yeah, he's definitely a boxer. Literally not doing any weight cutting until the last minute. Shock. But sorry to cut you off.
No, it's all right. So then what happened is basically onboarded him, had a little conversation with him over the phone, and just got all the diets set up for him. And he managed to take off, I think it was around 2 or 3 kilograms on the first week. And we did that through manipulations to his diet and getting him to sweat more, like getting in the sauna, doing more runs, and basically just doing these active and passive sweating methods. And then the week before the fight, I put together the water load for him and all the weight cutting meals on the week of the fight and all the rehydration and refueling. And he managed to make the weight very easily. And I remember I put the post on social media, and as soon as I got that post up, just got messages left, right, centre. Like I said, I blew up, and everybody just started wanting to work with me then. And that was probably the first moment that I got a big result. And obviously the first fighter I actively helped with a weight cut and make weight and fuel his fight. And, I'll obviously remember that for a very long time. And obviously I thank Dara for giving me the opportunity to work with him, because it's very difficult. I know what it's like for fighters at the start because I think one of the issues that a lot of fighters have got is as well, what I've noticed, what I've heard from coaches, and what I've experienced myself, is that because a lot of fighters are very sceptical, and you'll know this as well, about who they bring onto the team. And if they see somebody who's not got much experience, there's not really much trust there. So Dara took me on board, and then we actually got the result that he wanted, got him to where he wanted to be. And then I started building up, like, that's kind of like the snowball effect and getting more results with fighters.
Yeah.
And then I started to sort of build this trust, and then that's how I started to work with more fighters. Because I think it's what it's about, really, isn't it? It's about getting trusting people and just having that sort of proof to show that you can do what you can do. Because even though I had all the knowledge and I'd done case studies with fighters in uni and stuff like that, and I knew what I was talking about, that's a totally different to actually working with somebody. Because I believe you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't apply it and you don't get experience, don't really count for much, to be honest. And I think that's the same with in any walk of life.
Yeah, definitely. And as you're saying there about people not bringing on people with a lot of experience, it's one of those really frustrating aspects that is prevalent in all walks of life, is that it's like, oh, you need to have experience, but it's like, if you're not given an option to get experience, how am I going to get experience? And it goes through just like all jobs, all careers, everything. And it's quite frustrating on that front. But I mean, that's an incredible feat, doing like 9 kilos in 2 weeks and doing it easy, like you say, because that sort of thing, if done wrong, can absolutely destroy the performance of a fighter. So I really want to dig into just really specifically nutrition in this show today. So there, you're talking about water loading. Now, is that the main type of cutting that you tend to use? Because again, that's quite tough for a lot of fighters to try and manually do without the kind of, because you might find things on Google, you might find anything like typing in how-tos on the internet. But I think if you're going to try and cut weight without a good professional, like an educated professional, an experienced professional like yourself, like I found water loading very, very dangerous because you can really fuck your weight up, can't you?
Yeah, I think, and here's my take on it, and here's what I've kind of learned from it actually throughout the past few months. But water loading is just one of the tools that we'd use to help you sort of lower the scale weight as much as you possibly can. And essentially what water loading does is, usually you'll do it a week before the fight, and usually it's most beneficial for fighters who have got a day before weighing, because obviously if you're cutting more weight and using a water load, you've got to factor in that time between the weighing and the actual fight to get all that fluid back into you. But here's the thing with the water loading. What it does is it forces your body and tricks hormones in your body. So you've got two main hormones. You've got aldosterone, and then you've got one called ADH. One of them hormones is responsible for retaining more sodium in your body, and one of them is important for regulating your urine output. So what you're actually doing with the water loading is you're tricking your body. So you drink a lot more water at the start, and then you bring the water intake down. And what happens is at first you're peeing constantly, and you'll be sweating like a madman basically at the start, and that's a sign that it's right. And then what happens is it's kind of a delayed response. So the weight kind of comes off slowly, and then when you get to, let's say, for example, your weigh-ins on the Friday, what would usually happen is Monday, Tuesday, the weight will come down very slowly. It might plateau, but then when you get to like Wednesday afternoon, Thursday, it starts to come down quite rapidly. But one thing that I've noticed with water loading is that obviously it's very common in combat sports. A lot of fighters will use it. And the thing is with it, it's sometimes a good tool and sometimes not, because what I've noticed with, working with different fighters is some fighters actually benefit off water loading more than others, because there's been times, now listen, I've got different water loading methods for different scenarios based on how much weight you've got to cut. And sometimes some fighters actually respond well to the water loading and the weight comes off at the rate that we'd want it to come off. And then some fighters actually don't respond to it at all and the weight stalls. And there's been time periods where the water load hasn't responded and it's not worked. And I panicked and thought, why is this not working? It's worked with so many other fighters. But in these scenarios, in these instances, it's not working. So sometimes you've got to change your approach in order to make sure that the weight comes down. And what I've noticed is, alongside the water loading, making little changes gradually and actually preparing them strategically is how the weight comes down, and being specific towards that fight in terms of how much weight they've got to cut, even how much muscle mass they've got, because the more muscle mass you've got on your body, the more water you hold, and the more water you hold, the more you can get rid of. So it's pretty self-explanatory like that. So it's all dependent on basically them kind of principles that I've just mentioned. And what I like to do actually, and something that I'm starting to do with a lot of fighters I'm working with at this moment in time and going forward into the future, is actually trialing different water loads earlier on in the camp. Now, The reason why I'm trying to do that is to give them an idea, obviously give me an idea and give them that confidence to see, like, is this approach working or is that approach working? Then when it gets close to fight and it's actually time to do the water load and use these weight cut methods, then there's that sort of trust and know-how to be like, right, well, we've done this one before and it's worked and now it's going to work this time. I think a lot of fighters, you know, they'll get into, even if they're working with me or they're not working with me, they'll get to the week of the fight and they're just trying a random water load, which maybe they've seen off Google or some coach or some other boxers told them to do, and then they're not sure it's going to work or not. And then there's all this panic. So you've got to know what's going to work. And I think that's the most important thing to take into account.
I was literally just about to say that with regards to kind of trialing out different methods, because I mean, I understand a lot of the time you're not given much of an option, because like that, I can imagine a lot of fighters come to you with a couple of days, couple of weeks to go, and they're like, oh mate, I need to just lose a huge amount of weight. Like, how do you do this? But yeah, that's very true. Having enough time to work with someone so you can understand how much they can cut in these weights. Because having quantitative data just makes everyone's life so much easier and so much less stressful as well.
Absolutely does. And I think that you've pretty much hit the nail on the head there. And I mean, at this moment in time, I've kind of got different sort of, you know, scenarios. So some fighters will call me 2, 3, 4 weeks out. Some will want to work with me at the start of the camp. But just like you said then, and, you know, like you touched on, it's always better to have as much time with that fighter as you possibly can, because then you can plan things out, you can manage it more, and then you can sort of figure out how their body responds, because that's a beautiful part about nutrition and understanding different athletes' bodies, that everyone's different. So like I've just mentioned before with the water load and then different weight cut strategies, not everybody's going to respond the same. And the more time you've got to work with them, the more you're going to learn and the easier it's going to make it. And that's the most important thing, you know, without a doubt.
Yeah, 100%. So just as you're saying there, how obviously some people respond differently to the water loading than others, and some people might not even lose much weight off that. Is there any kind of indicators that might be like, I don't know, whether that's a specific type of body type, whether that's like hair color, eye color, if they're like, oh, if you've got blonde hair, blue eyes, water loading's just not for you. Is there any kind of demographics or any sort of indication as to whether that might or might not work? Just from your data, you maybe, if not, you should just start logging logging blood types and everything, see what
yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I mean, sometimes it can be quite difficult to tell because there's so many different factors that come into play. But one thing that is really important to sort of know, and I've kind of touched on it a little bit earlier on, is, say for example, it's a bigger fighter who's got a little bit more muscle mass, quite a big guy, maybe like a cruiserweight or a heavyweight. They're somebody who would respond better to a water load because they've got more muscle mass and muscle holds more water and glycogen. So when they actually do the water load and they follow the low residue diet, which is something else we do to help fighters cut weight a week out, then they can actually get rid of more water. And if we contrast that and compare that to, let's say, for example, like a super lightweight or a bantamweight, so somebody who's a little bit lighter and quite a lean guy and, you know, quite slim, it's going to be a lot more difficult for them because they've got a lower sort of muscle mass in terms of the actual size and less water retention on the body. It's a lot more difficult with them. So usually if I'm in that scenario, I'd kind of, if say for example I'm working with a lighter fighter like I just mentioned then, what I'd do with them is I'd kind of use a lighter water load, but I'd focus more on sort of carb depletion and the low residue diet. But if it was a heavier fighter, like say the cruiserweight or the heavyweight or the middleweight even, then I would do the heavier water load and then still manipulate the diet. And that's kind of what I've noticed and what usually some of the differences are between a lot of the fighters.
Awesome. So obviously there we've talked about water loading, manipulations of water. You've got obviously low residue. We've got carbs, and then obviously sodium as well. We've got, so they're kind of the four main elements that you will tweak kind of coming into weigh-ins that obviously have the biggest impact on weight, and well, essentially all of it's dependent kind of on water retention to an extent. So just kind of talk about the four of those, like what are they and how they kind of impact someone's weight. So obviously for any boxers listening to this going like, the fuck is this guy talking about? Like, yeah, just kind of touch on each four of those. I'm guessing obviously they will know about water as a giveaway, but I guess the other three, like the sodium, the residue, and the carbs. Well, probably most people have heard of kind of no carbs before marbs and all that. But yeah, just kind of go into it and give them a little bit of more understanding about what they are and how they impact your weight.
Yeah, so I think one of the most important ones and most important nutrients is fibre. So usually what we do is we take that out about 5 to 7 days before the actual weighing's happening. And what fibre is it's a type of indigestible carbohydrate, which basically when you consume like a fibrous carbohydrate, let's say for example like a quinoa or maybe like sweet potato or porridge oats, what happens is your body doesn't actually digest the fibre. So that stays in your digestive system. And essentially, if you have a high fibre diet, you're going to weigh more, because if you've got more sort of food matter inside your digestive tract, you're going to weigh more on the scale. It's going to increase your body weight. So that's one thing that we would do. Like I mentioned, 5 to 7 days out, we'd take the fibre out and we'd put it to around 10 grams, because keeping it at 10 grams or lower, yeah, you might struggle on the toilet because, you're not going to keep your bowel movements regular. That's probably the most ideal kind of amount to keep your scale weight down and make sure that you're controlling and maintaining that fibre intake. So that's an important one. And another one is the sodium, like you're saying. So essentially, there's this rule that goes with sodium. So wherever sodium goes, water usually follows with it. So if you consume a lot of salt and a lot of high sodium sauces, seasonings, things like that, your body will hold on to more water. And obviously that increases your body weight on the scale as well. So we'd usually take that out 3 to 5 days before the actual weigh. Now, there's one mistake a lot of fighters make, which I try and not put in the fighter's weight cutting diet, and that is taking the salt out too early. Now, the reason why you shouldn't take the salt, or more specifically the sodium, out too early is because what you need to realise is that when you're doing a weight cut, if you deplete yourself too early, your body is not going to be able to get rid of anything else, and it's going to find it much more difficult. So that's why I'm saying doing it strategically and manipulating them nutrients in gradual amounts, taking them out slowly, is the basically makes the difference. So what I do is with the sodium, we take it down to around 500 to 1,000 milligrams, and we do that 3 to 5 days out to further increase that water loss and keeping the scale weight low. And we typically just stop salting food, stop putting salt on it, get rid of any seasonings or sauces which have hidden amounts of sodium, and that usually does the trick. And then the other biggest one, and I think this one is one that a lot of fighters get a lot of misinformation around, is the carbs. Now, I've heard a lot of fighters go on to keto diets and completely getting rid of the carbs, and that's not necessarily the most sort of effective approach to follow. Now, what we have to remember with carbs is that carbohydrate stores in your muscles as glycogen, which binds to water, which takes up a considerable amount of weight on the scale. But what you want to do is you want to actually look at whether you want to look at your weighing structure. So whether you're on a same day or day before weighing is going to decide how much you need to deplete your carbs, because let's say, for example, you're on a same day weighing, you do not want to be lowering your carbs too much, because in order to actually resynthesize and get all them carbs back into your muscle glycogen stores, it's going to take you around 24 to 36 hours to do it. And if you've only got, which I'd say most amateur boxers and obviously amateur MMA fighters have a same day weigh, you're not going to get that in within 3 or 4 hours, which is usually the time between the weigh and the fight. So if it's actual in a situation where it's like an MMA fighter or a professional boxer who's on a day before weighing, then we can start to look at sort of depleting the carbohydrates a lot more. And the key is to get the amounts right. So what I like to do is deplete the carbs and lower them 7 days before the fight. And that usually gives your body enough time to deplete the carbs and also get the scale weight down. But it's really about fine tuning and making sure you've got the right type of carbs in for your weighing structure. And I think that's where a lot of fighters go wrong. And that's why they go into the fight feeling like they've got no energy, feeling empty, and they start gassing the early round. So it's these little things like this, which if you're not managing, you're not sort of taking any attention to, that can have a huge effect. And I think a lot of fighters don't realise that, to be honest. And obviously that's my job to educate and help them with it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also kind of managing energy for performance. I find a lot of fighters, just from like the pro stable that I was in, no one was really working with nutritionists back then. And people, obviously, where are so focused on cutting weight, and they just not eating any carbs, and you go into like these big heavy sparring sessions and stuff, and you just punch bags. But I've had that plenty of times myself as well, like just being a bit too rigid on and too extreme when you're cut far too early on in camp, and it has such a negative effect on your performance all round.
Yeah, I think that's what happens when you don't manage the nutrition and the weight properly, and that's why I've explained to you earlier on that I like to have a full camp with fighters, because then we can actually work out the weight at the start of the camp and how much they need to lose gradually each week until they can get on weight for the fight. And what that allows us to do is actually fuel up the camp with plenty of carbs and calories in order for them to actually push them higher intensities, whether that's sparring on the bag or it's like a strength and conditioning session. And then they can actually bring the weight down gradually, and they're not depleting themselves, because what you've got to remember is that at the start of the fight camp, the main goal isn't to bring the weight down. The goal is to become a better fighter, and fuel your sessions. And what a lot of fighters do is when they don't plan things out and they don't strategize and have a plan together with, like I say, how they're going to get the weight down ready for the fight, that's where all the panic comes in. And that's where they're restricting the carbs, they're restricting calories, and eating as little as possible to keep the weight down for the fight, because that's a problem. It's a weight-making sport, so the weight is constantly on the mind. But having that plan in place and fueling the camp and getting all the right details ready to make weight and rehydrate and refuel makes a huge difference, and that's the key.
Definitely. So with regards to that, when you're working with a client, and obviously you're looking at your full camp, how do you structure your days? Are you like because obviously you're going to have heavier days. You like some days you're doing your double sessions, and how do you structure their nutrition around that? Is it kind of, do you do that kind of like green, red, orange kind of association with carbs? So like high day, you're going to go like higher carb. Is it, how do you tend to structure people's and your clients' nutrition around heavy days and light days?
Yeah, so on the Sempo app, where I program all the meals for the clients, what I'll do is I'll basically work out the calories and obviously the macronutrients, which I basically know based off how hard they're training. And then what I'll do is, essentially, I'll keep the calories the same most days, maybe bring them down slightly on a rest day because they don't need as much energy to perform. And what I'll do is, I'll look at the training schedule. So let's say, for example, there's a double training day, or even if they've got 3 sessions, if it's MMA, what I'll do is I'll just manipulate the macros. So heavier training days require more carbs, and then the lighter days increase the fats and bring the carbs down. But one thing I like to do is, and a lot of fighters make this mistake, is keep the protein like a moderate level, because a lot of fighters, a lot of guys out there these days, you just focus on protein and keeping that high, because it's a bit of a craze world going around on social media, protein this, protein that. But when it's
protein,
fighters,
Weetabix and everything nowadays, it's madness.
Protein water, protein protein soap. I mean, you know what I mean? I've seen protein soap and shampoo.
There'd be protein lagers in the pub scene, weren't there?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd probably have to have a few of them, to be honest. But yeah, but yeah, what I think the main thing to sort of like take away from this is, and what I'm explaining, trying to get to, is that the heavier your training sessions are, and the heavier the volume of your sessions are, the more carbs you need to be consuming and making sure you're getting the right type of carbs. And then that's pretty much it, to be honest.
Where you're talking about the right kind of carbs, what sort of flexibility do you have with regards to quote unquote good and bad foods? You know, because I think people get very neurotic about this. You can't eat Haribos because I know they just make you fat, and banana's good carbs. Do you know what I mean? So how do you, what's your kind of flexibility like with your fighters with regards to what they can and can't choose with regards to good and bad fuel, clean, dirty fuel, whatever it's called nowadays?
Yeah, so this is definitely a good area to talk about, in a bit of a grey area, because I've had fighters come into work with me and they're like, "Are you sure I can eat squares bars and have Lucozade and sweets before I train, mate? Is that not going to give me diabetes and make me unhealthy?" Not guys who say that, but then there's some guys who they've got no problem doing it. So there's kind of a bit of a mixture there. But what I try and preach with a lot of the fighters out with, and my whole message on social media and actually working with combat sports athletes, is that when you're training hard and when you're going to eat your meal before your session, what I like to do is I like to make sure that they're getting something that's easy to digest around an hour and a half to 2.5 hours before the session. So that could come in the form of like a squares bar. It could be like a rice pudding with a bit of honey. It could be a bagel with some jam. It Could be white bread toasted with a bit of honey on it, and maybe like a handful of sweets. And the most important thing to sort of take away from that is that, yeah, these carbs might be unhealthy and, like we say, non-optimal for you, not really have much nutritional value, but it's going to digest really easily. It's going to give you that quick sugar hit, and that's what you need when you come into your sessions. Like the amount of fighters that have come to me, and listen, I admire anybody who wants to eat healthy and wants to eat a good diet. Like there's nothing wrong with that at all. But there's so many fighters who've come to me and they want to eat healthy and they're obsessed with eating clean foods because Bivol did it, or Usyk's done it, or whichever name it is has done that, and that's the speculation they've heard. What you've got to realise, and what fighters have done is they've gone, right, mate, I want to eat porridge, or I want to eat sweet potato, or I want to eat, quinoa before my session. So I've said to them, right, okay, then what we'll do is this week, we've got your hard training days. We've got 2 days here where you're doing, let's say, sparring. On one sparring day, before you spar, I want you to have a sweet potato and whatever else you'd have with it. And then on the other training session, I want you to have a Lucozade and 2 slices of toast and honey before it. Tell me which one you feel better on. And you know what the answer is. The session where they had the toast and the honey felt a lot better. And the reason why is because if you have all them healthy carbs and high fiber carbs before you train, it's going to take a long time to digest. It sits in your stomach and your body's going to be focused on digesting that food, and all the blood flow is going to go to your digestive system rather than the working muscles. And that's why it's more optimal and more effective to have them sugary carbs, which are going to digest these and give you the energy during your session. So it's really about the timings. And I think that's the key with mastering your diet, especially for fighting sports, is getting the timings right. Because listen, when we're saying to eat sweets and have honey and have these unhealthy foods, it's not because we're trying to make you unhealthy. It's because we're trying to help you reach your potential and your maximum capabilities. But you're not going to be eating like that all the time. It's only around your training sessions to reach your energy requirements. And that's the key with it, really. It's all about balance with diet. And, you get all these guys on social media, Eddie Abu, whoever else it is, giving you misleading information, saying you have to eat this, you have to eat that. But what a lot of the research says, is, specifically with athletes, is that, like I said, the timings are key and crucial. So you just got to ignore what the majority of social media is saying, all this misleading information, and actually go off what works. And to be honest with you, the best thing to actually do is to just trial different methods like I just explained there, and then you can actually understand what your body responds to. And that's all it is, really.
Yeah, it's very true. I think a lot of fighters as well get a bit too caught up with bullshit on social media, and as a result they end up eating and training like bodybuilders. Because again, to say with me, I do a lot of S&C work for boxers, and they'll come to me like, well, I'm doing this and this, and they're doing like German volume training and stuff like huge amounts of fun. I'm like, why? It's totally contradictive to what your goal is. But because of everything you're just peppered with, like you say, all that rubbish online, people just almost take it as gospel after a while.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because, like I say, when you've got so much BS spreading across social media and people getting pushed out of the algorithm, you're going to see them more. And sometimes, if you watch somebody enough on social media and you start scrolling them, you're going to start believing it to an extent, aren't you? Eventually, but it's just about being, like I say, being specific towards a sport. Because if it's fighting sports, you've got grappling, kicking, jiu-jitsu, boxing, punches. You've got hard and fast movements. What gives your body the most energy when you're doing that? Glucose and carbs.
Yeah, you need carbs.
Protein and having avocado and these days now, these chopping boards with like eggs, avocado, mince, and cow's bollock or whatever it is. Having that isn't going to be good for you when you're a fighter. Having carbs and having a lot of them is actually what's going to allow you to start basically knocking people out and performing well. And that's what it's about. And the more you can realise that, the more your performance is going to improve. And this is what it is. It's a performance-based sport. A bodybuilder, like you just mentioned before, or a general population person who wants to train for like aesthetics and to look good, yeah, they've got to pay attention to the protein and manipulate the carbs or whatever it is. But if it's a performance-based sport, it's more about fueling your body rather than trying to look good. And that's the main thing with it, really.
Yeah, definitely. What about intra-workout? because obviously I know a lot of boxers, some of our sessions would be fucking brutal and they'd go on for ages, like hour and a half, kind of 2 hours. What do you recommend for a lot of your clients with regards to intra workouts?
Yes, so I think this is actually a good topic as well. So like intra nutrition, whatever you know the name for it, which a lot of Americans would call it. But yeah, so say for example you've got tough sessions, you've got sparring, or you've got like a long 2 hour session, you know, like a grueling session where you've got to push hard, you want to keep the intensity up there. The best way to sort of look at this, and what I do with the fighters I'm working with, is focus on liquid carbs rather than like sweets and stuff. Like, listen, you could have a small amount of sweets, but I like to focus on things like Lucozade, jams, honey, and basically like energy gels and stuff, which is like a gel consistency, which can actually absorb and digest really fast. I mean, listen, applesauce and jams and honey's are good, but listen, how many fighters do you know that are going to be in a session with a jam, you know, like a jar of jam like that, sticking a spoon in? Not many.
I don't know, mate. I've known some weird people in gyms.
I mean,
that'd probably be me. That'd be me. I'd be like, finger in, like.
Yeah. I mean, on the whole, you would, but I think the best way to sort of look around it is just to get something liquid. So usually you go for like a Lucozade Sport, a Gatorade. You could go for, like I say, energy gel, and that's usually what I like to do with my fighters, because it gives you that 30, 60 grams of carbs per hour that you need to get them extra inches out of your body. And I think that's a very sort of underrated kind of fueling strategy, which a lot of fighters miss out. And I think it can, well, I know it makes a huge difference to your performance. So I swear by it with a lot of clients I work with, and I recommend it.
As we know, mate, every inch counts.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, you said it, haven't you?
Yeah. So just coming back round to that, we were talking earlier about how a lot of the systems completely change with regards to day before and day weigh-ins. So how do you tend to manage clients and weight cuts when it's on the day weigh-ins? Because I know kind of a majority of people listening to this will probably be having on the day weigh-ins. So how would you manage those? And again, if someone's coming up to you with like 9 kilos to lose, but they've got an on the day weigh-in, does it ever get to a point where you're like, I think it's probably better just to not try?
Yeah, so put it this way, right? When I'm working with a fight who was on a day before weighing, I like to keep the weight cut on the week of the fight no more than 5 kilograms. Sometimes it could be more. The upper limit I'd go up to is around 8 kilograms if it's a day before. But like I said, the lower you can keep it down to, the better. But when it's the same day weighing, really you don't want to be going any higher than 2.5 kilograms, 3 kilograms at an absolute push on the week of the fight. Put it this way, like you just said there, I know it's hypothetical and that, but if you've got 9 kilograms to lose, I'd probably just call it off, or just be like, listen, can you not find me a fight where I just have to lose a kilo on the week of the fight? Because like I said, some of all the methods that you would use for a day before weighing and a same day weighing are completely different. And a lot of fighters make the mistake of using the same methods for both kind of weighing structures. So usually what I would do is, if I'm working with a fighter who's on a same day weighing, which is quite a lot of the fighters I've worked with and working with now, is I'd look at 2 kilograms, 2.5 kilograms maximum on the week of the fight, and keep the carbs in there. So I usually keep them to around 200 grams, because that's enough to keep your energy levels high and it's not going to deplete you enough. So I'll do that, focus on lowering the fibre to 10 grams, 7 days out, like I mentioned before, lowering the sodium, keeping the food volume low. But the most important thing to mention and to keep talking about here is keeping the carbs in there, because like I mentioned earlier on, you can't have enough time to actually restore and replenish them carbs back into you. And then you just sweat the extra weight out through light sessions, keeping the intensity low, so light jogs, light pad work, and just things like that. Like the amount of boxers and even MMA fighters I've come across who've got same day weight, and they're training in sauna suits, they're jumping in the sauna for 3 hours, not literally, but in intervals, they're jumping in the sauna, and they're doing all these really draining, sort of depleting methods. It's not good for your body, and you've only got such a short window to actually get all this stuff back into you. So you've got to really pay attention to the strategies you're using, and if you can do that, you're going to make it so much more easy for you. And then all you have to do is, after weighing, just get some light carbs into you and just rehydrate and fuel up, and then that's pretty much it there. And then that's what you would do for same day weighing, really.
Nice. Right, so we've only got a couple more questions left, but first one is electrolytes. Obviously, we're talking about like sodium manipulation and things like that. And well, I guess actually I can just put this all into one kind of question. The refuel and rehydration process. How do you manage that? What kind of tips and strategies do you have for your fighters? And I guess could you give to some guys for some little takeaways? And then also, what's your kind of thoughts and your approach to electrolytes? Do you have like those effervescent tablets? Do you get your clients taking more of those, or are you just an old school salt sort of bloke?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I say again, it all depends on the weighing structure, whether it's a day before or same day weighing. But say, for example, a lot of the fighters that I work with who are on a day before weighing, a couple of tips that I could give for you, and the most important one, first of all, is
I
when
like the
you've
point
you
there as
wake
well.
up, yeah, that's it, yeah. When you've done a big weight cut, rehydration and getting that water back into your body is the most important thing to do, but doing it gradually. Because the amount of fighters that I've come across who just want to get all that water in, they're like some lunatic, it's not good for you because you're not going to be able to take it in properly. Like you're saying, you want to get the electrolytes in. So what I like to do is make sure you're replacing 150% of the fluid you've lost. The way you'd actually work that out is you'd work out how much weight you've lost on the week of the fight till you weigh and you're weighing weight, and then you just minus it and then time it by 1.5. Now, you've got to bear in mind, the more weight you've cut on the week of the fight, you're going to have to, replace a lot more fluid. So that's why I'm saying keep the weight cut, the amount you've got to lose on the week of the fight, as low as you possibly can. So what I do is focus on that. But initially, when it comes to the first rehydration drink, it would be prioritising getting the electrolytes back into you. So the sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and the chloride, they're usually the most important ones. So the way I like to do it is, let's say, for example, you just step off the scales. Initially, you'd go with mils of a Lucozade, mils of water, and around half a teaspoon of salt. Now, the salt I like to use in my fighters, I've actually got it here. It's a Celtic sea salt, or even like Himalayan pink salt, and that covers all the electrolyte needs. So your sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and even the chloride. So I'll do that first, and then that has the right concentration of electrolytes to fluid, so your body can actually take it in and transfer it to muscles. Because what happens is, and a lot of fighters make this mistake, is if you just chug loads of water after you're weighing straight away, you're just going to keep peeing it out, and that's going to deplete your body even more of fluid and electrolytes, and that can potentially be dangerous and cause some quite serious effects. So I like to do that first. Then after that, we'll be looking at getting coconut water into your body. So 300ml coconut water is a good one to use, and then just gradually increasing your fluid consumption at a rate of around 1 litre per hour, using one electrolyte tablet or one scoop of electrolyte powder for every litre, and then basically cutting that off when your needs have been met. So you've had your fluid across the day and you've met the amounts that you need to have rehydrated with, and when your pee is clear, and then that's how you will do it really. But it's just important to, like I say, get the electrolytes in initially and then gradually build up to drinking more fluid. And then usually what I'd do is I'd start introducing the carbs and then the meals after, let's say, for example, your third rehydration drink. And then when you do it like that, your body can take everything in at the right rate. And that's what's really important to consider. But if we do compare this like a same day weighing, you would just look at, again, rehydrating with electrolytes and fluid, but you wouldn't really times it by, you won't replace 150% of the fluid you lost, because if you've done things right and the way it should be, you've not cut as much weight on the week of the fight. So you just focus on getting the electrolytes in, like I say, Lucozade, water, salt. Then you go with like your coconut water, your creatine, your fluid again, and just gradually getting that fluid intake back into your body with the electrolytes. And it's just important to make sure that you've got all the electrolytes in, because if you just drink water, it's not going to hydrate you properly, because you need to get the fluid back into your body and retain it. And that's what a lot of fighters and a lot of people get mixed up between hydration, drinking water. They think that just drinking water is hydrating you, but it's not necessarily the case. So you've got to really pay attention to doing that. And it's just, like I say, it's just doing it step by step and gradually, and, making sure that it's all tailored to how much weight you've cut and how much you've got to replenish. And if you do it like that, you're going to have no problems, but just make sure there's a plan in place. That's all I can really say for it.
Yeah, 100%. So with regards to that, what are the biggest mistakes that you will see with clients, not clients saying necessarily, just fighters in general, on their refueling process? So more like with what they tend to eat and when, and well, I guess you said they're kind of the water, you're drinking too much water, but yeah, so it's more from like a refueling, so more from a food standpoint.
Yeah, so the reason why I'm laughing at that is, and obviously I'll talk about it in a second, is because I made a story on this earlier on, because me and a mate actually were talking about it before. But to be honest with you, the biggest mistake that I see a lot of fighters making after weighing is eating too much food straight away. It doesn't even matter if it's the same day or day before weighing. The amount of fighters that I've heard, even just asking me for advice in terms of refueling, and they're saying, is it okay to have a kebab after the weighing, or is it
Straight to Nando's usually, isn't there? Straight to Nando's, and
yeah,
you'd be like,
or a Domino's, but you don't want to do that, because if you've done a big weight cut and you've not eaten that much food on the week of the fight, and it's been a good few days since you've eaten a considerable amount of food, you can't just get that into your body straight away, because it's not going to digest properly. So you've got to gradually introduce them carbs and build up to solid meals. So usually what I do is, and I always like to use the example of a day before weighing. So if it is a day before weighing, after that weighing, what I do is I spread across the day in the actual, complete refuel, and there'd be 5 to 6 meals. But the first, let's say 3 meals would be like sweets, liquid carbs, and then we'd build up to like pasta and rice at the 4th and 5th meal, and then obviously combine them carbs together. But yeah, honestly, the amount of fighters that I've come across who've had Nando's, massive pizzas, kebabs, all these different.
That's the thing as well, and it's you're then you're slowing that digestion down dramatically. Obviously, you want to get carbs in, because again, when you're fighting, your body's just going to be working off those carbs. That glycogen is going to be fueling your performance. Whereas you're just eating fucking bucket loads of cheese, loads of chicken fat and chips and all that. All that like digestion is just going to halt almost. So you're just slowing down your body's ability to actually get the nutrients and the energy that it needs.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's it there. And listen, I totally understand it, and I've had plenty of scenarios where fighters are messaging me saying, "Mate, I'm starving. Am I all right to have a full English, or can I have a chip and stuff like that?" And I'm like, you can't have that after weighing, because it's too much. And like you have said there, you just touched on it. What's the most important thing after that weighing is getting them carbs back into your body as quickly as can, and that's why the sweets, the liquid carbs, and the honeys and things like that, and the unhealthy foods are most optimal, because they're what going to digest really fast. Having takeaways and having large amounts of fat and even fibre when some guys do healthy foods, it's just going to slow down that digestive process. And that's why I'm saying you first of all introduce light carbs and then build up to solid meals. But once your body's got to a stage where it's been able to deal with and digest and absorb all that food. So it's just doing it gradually like that, and then that's how you refuel properly. And that's what makes a difference when you come into the fight, and just step by step. That's the key, really.
Yeah, mate, 100%. Well, I guess my last question: if you could fight anyone, who would you fight? It can be professional boxer, it could be one of the wannabe boxers, it could be, I don't know, it could be anyone, it could be me. Like, I don't know why I just came up with this, but yeah, you could fight one person. It can be anyone in the world. Who would it be and why?
I mean, it's a good question. I mean, I'll probably get them DMing me after this.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never had any boxing experience or, being a professional fighter or had any amateur fights and things like that. But I'd probably just say, just to say I've fought him, I mean, it'd have been good to fight Mike Tyson. There's a difference with me saying...
Mate, you never say never. I mean, he's fighting Jake Paul, and he said never say never.
I think you'd fight Mike Tyson in his prime, because it's like turning around and saying, "Oh, I've actually gone in there and fought him." It's just to say you've done it, and probably because of the massive paycheck. So yeah, either Mike Tyson or actually maybe somebody like Dimitri Bivol, and just be like, "I actually stepped in the ring with him." You'd probably get your head taken off, but
can you make it around? Can you make it around?
To be honest, you probably won't even make it within the first few seconds. But yeah, I think it'd be a good paycheck, obviously, and it'd be good to obviously say that you've got in there and fought him. But yeah, that's what I'd say, to be honest. So one of them two, yeah.
Did you watch the fight at the weekend?
Yeah, I did watch the fight, and
what did you make of it?
Yeah, so it's a good fight. I think it was close, but a lot of people turned around, didn't they? And you'll have heard it yourself. You said that Bivol was robbed and stuff, but don't necessarily think he was robbed. I just think when people showed the stats and stuff, and I did actually think Bivol won at first, but when I actually looked at the stats, like I'm saying here, I think Better Bayer did deserve to win, and I think they'll go again. But listen, 2 world-class fighters, easily the best in the world in their weight category.
Yeah, it was class.
Listen, we'll go again, but listen, the man who won deserved to win, and that's all there is to it. And I think obviously Bivol, I don't know him obviously, do I? But he's got to take it on the chin and obviously take responsibility. And you can tell he'll come back again, because when you watch his interviews, you can see the desire, and he don't like losing. He's he's a champion and like a warrior, like he says in his post-fight interviews. So listen, it'd be brilliant to see another fight, and I think everybody wants to see it, to be honest, and I certainly do. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It was a cracking show. I think every single fight was excellent. It was a lot of interesting fights, especially the Ben Whittaker one.
Yeah, to be honest, I was a bit.
He copped out. He bought. If I'm honest, I think he bottled that.
Yeah, I was watching that.
He wasn't moving. He wasn't moving right. Like, yeah, he just didn't seem his usual flashy self. So I don't know. Maybe he needs to get in contact. Maybe he's not been doing his weight right, mate.
Yeah, I'll send him a DM or two.
So that's what it could be.
I think I seen it coming up, because obviously I didn't watch it until Bivol came on.
Yeah.
The main event. But when I seen it pop up on Instagram, I thought, well, what's he doing here? I thought, is he trying to shaggy me or something?
Yeah, it was like full WWE vibes. It was mad. And then,
it was some like stage thing. But apparently they were saying, weren't they, that they were telling him to dive over the ring or just clinch and stuff.
He was wearing some shots as well. It kind of reminded me a bit like Josh Kelly. Like Josh Kelly was just smoking everyone, and then he came up against I can't remember that geezer, and the geezer just was just walking through his punches. All the shots that would usually he would be putting people down with, the guy just walked through them, and yeah, he just had no answer to it. And obviously he got beat. And I think that's kind of similar to what Ben Whittaker was, just kind of thought he was going to smoke this geezer and smoke that Cameron guy, and he just didn't. He's got like his punch tolerance, his punch resistance was just next level. Because again, he's only lost to like Golovkin and Munguia, isn't he? So
a great fight. And I think that Jai as well, Jai Opataya,
he's different gravy. Yeah, Fabio Woodley as well. Fabio Woodley was excellent. I obviously rate him because this is more of this podcast is for like white collar boxers, and that's all that he's had is a few white collar fights. So that's it. He's my goal. He's my goal interview one day. That's what we're working towards.
Yeah, you never know. Get him on one day, hopefully, and see what.
But mate, where can people find out more about you? Obviously, I'm sure everyone that's listening to this will want to listen more to your content, because you're very, very knowledgeable. So where can people find out more about yourself?
Yeah, so to be honest, I'm pretty much on every social media platform. You got your TikTok, your YouTube Shorts, but best way to find me is on my Instagram page, FinnKenny_nutritionist. You can find me on TikTok as a boxer's nutritionist, and Facebook as FinnKenny, my name. But nice. Mainly Instagram is the best place to find me. And obviously, I post daily reels on there. I post my content on TikTok, even some on YouTube Shorts. So pretty much all over social media, but definitely say Instagram is the best place to find me. So listen, anybody who wants to message me, wants to work with me, wants any advice, just send me a direct message on Instagram and I'll get back to you in due course.
Sweet, I'll put those links in the show notes. But Finn, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, mate.
Thank you very much. Nice one. Appreciate you taking time to talk to me.
Yeah, anytime, geezer. Bye-bye.